Hey everyone, welcome back. We've got a fascinating deep dive lined up for you today, one that's moving crazy fast, even for the world of AI.
It really is. And it's changing who the power players are. You don't have to be a tech giant to be on the cutting edge anymore.
That's what's got me so curious. We're talking about AI distillation today.
Uh-huh.
Our listeners sent us a ton of stuff on it, research papers, articles, you name it.
Yeah, great collection they sent in. There's so much happening in this space.
So let's jump right in. For anyone who hasn't been following every AI development like we have,
Yeah.
can we start with like a definition? What is AI distillation?
Okay, so imagine a master chef. They've got this complex recipe, years of experience went into it. But they can teach the essentials to another cook. That's kind of like AI distillation.
Ooh, I like that analogy. Makes it easy to grasp.
Right. So basically, you take a huge, powerful AI model and you kind of transfer its knowledge into a smaller, more efficient one. All the good stuff, way less overhead. That's how smaller teams can compete without, needing Google-level resources.
And that brings us to that story, the one about DeepSeek. They made headlines, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. DeepSeek, they're this Chinese startup. No one saw them coming, really. But they managed to make AI models, like using this distillation technique, that were just about as good as what OpenAI was putting out.
Yeah, and I remember reading that, and it wasn't just like a copycat thing. They were, like, innovating on top of it, too.
Totally. They didn't just take the existing models. They figured out ways to actually improve them while shrinking them down. It really shook things up.
Yeah, and you know what else is wild? There's this article about researchers at Berkeley, and get this, they built a super advanced model, practically state-of-the-art. You want to guess how much it cost them?
Okay, given the context, I'm guessing it wasn't millions.
No, like $450. And just a few computer chips. That's how accessible this is getting.
It's crazy. AI development used to be this exclusive club. Now the doors are blowing wide open.
Right, so now we've got everyone and their dog trying to get in on this,
Yeah.
right?
It's become this huge race, a gold rush, basically. And one of the biggest shifts we're seeing, it's all this movement towards open source AI models.
Open source, always got to love that. Yeah, everyone can see the code, build on it, no secrets.
Yeah. I actually have this quote here. It's from Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI. He said that being closed source is basically being on the wrong side of history. Pretty strong words coming from him.
Wow, didn't expect that from OpenAI. They're like, the poster child for proprietary AI. That's a huge shift.
Huge. And DeepSeek, they basically gave away their blueprint when they went open source. Now anyone can take what they did, use it, change it, build on top of it.
So you think this means we're like heading for a future where all the cool AI stuff, it's all open and collaborative, everyone sharing, everyone benefiting?
Honestly, it's looking that way. Which begs the question, though, right? What about the big guys like Google or Microsoft? They've been pouring billions into AI. Will they keep doing that if everyone can catch up using, these new techniques, open source models and all that?
Yeah, good point. Are they suddenly going to become dinosaurs?
Well, there's this thing, it's an economic principle called the Jevons paradox. Basically, sometimes when something gets more efficient, we don't use less of it, we use even more.
Interesting. So maybe big tech won't back down.
They might double down, but the point is, this is changing the game for everyone. Now, AGI, the idea of like truly human-level AI, that might still be something that only the giants can really tackle because of the sheer resources needed.
Right, like some things you just can't DIY, even with the best tools.
Exactly.
But for most of us, not building Skynet or whatever, this is amazing. The cost of actually using AI in your business, your life, whatever, it's going down like crazy.
And that opens up tons of possibilities. Like one expert I was reading said he thinks we'll see 100 times more AI applications in the next few years, all thanks to this.
Wow, 100 times. That's not just a tweak, that's a total transformation, right?
For sure. It's like giving a superpower to, well, almost anyone who wants it.
We're talking real democratization here.
Absolutely. It's not just tech anymore. AI is going to be in everything. Healthcare, finance, you name it.
But before we get too carried away with the sunshine and roses, one of those news clips you sent, it talked about DeepSeek and like maybe they use some of OpenAI stuff without permission to train their models.
Yeah, that whole intellectual property thing, it's a huge gray area right now. Like, how do you even define ownership when it comes to AI,
Seriously.
Yeah.
It's like trying to copyright an idea itself. Where do you even begin?
Exactly. And that's just one of the many questions we're going to have to wrestle with as AI becomes, well, everything.
So to sum it up, we've got this distillation thing making AI cheaper and easier. Then open source is shaking things up. The big guys might be feeling the heat. AGI is still this huge goal.
It's a lot.
It is. But that's why we do these deep dives, right? We try to break it all down, see the different angles, and then our listener can take it from there, connect the dots, figure out what it means for them.
Totally. We're just providing the pieces, but it's up to them to build their own understanding.
So as we move into part 2 of this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about. If anyone can build a powerful AI model, what does that mean for the race to AGI? Does it speed things up? Do we get super intelligence sooner than we thought? Or does it mean we'll see a bunch of different AGIs, all with different strengths, maybe even different values?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. Because the future of AI, it's not set in stone. It's being written right now, and we're all a part of it.
It really makes you wonder, like what could happen? And it's not just about AGI. DeepSeek shows that even regular AI development, it could all start moving way faster.
Yeah, you've said AGI a couple of times now, and I think for people listening who aren't like totally immersed in AI, we got to clarify. We've been talking AI that's good at one thing, right? Like writing or playing chess or whatever. AGI, that's a different beast altogether, isn't it?
Totally different. Think of it this way. AGI, it's not about being good at a task. It's about having intelligence like ours, like being able to learn anything, solve any problem, adapt to like anything, just like a human can, but, maybe even better.
Okay, that's pretty mind-blowing when you put it like that. So here's the thing. If this distillation thing makes powerful AI so much easier to make, does that mean we're going to get to AGI sooner? Like, is it speeding up the timeline?
That's the million-dollar question. And honestly, there's no easy answer. Distillation, it's great for like making what we already have better, more efficient. But true AGI, that might need something completely different,
Yeah.
It's like maybe we're missing a fundamental piece of the puzzle, some concept of intelligence that we haven't grasped yet.
So even if things are changing fast, the quest for AGI, it's still a long road ahead.
For sure. But it's a road with some pretty crazy potential outcomes, right? Imagine a world where machines are not just tools, they're thinking, learning, even creating better than we can.
Yeah, reading all this stuff our listeners sent, I'm struck by how fast things are already changing. It wasn't that long ago AI was like this sci-fi thing. Now it's everywhere you look.
I know, right? And it's only going to get more intense. And the question is, how do we handle that as a society? It's not just about the tech itself, it's about the choices we make.
Which brings us back to open source, doesn't it? DeepSeek making their models public, that seemed to have kicked off a whole trend. Like a lot of the articles you gave me, they talk about this surge in open source AI, almost like it's putting pressure on the big companies to change their ways.
It's definitely not just a fad. Open source has a lot of advantages. For one, collaboration, people working together, sharing ideas, that leads to way faster progress. Also, transparency. You can see exactly how these AIs work, which can build trust, And then there's access. Smaller companies, researchers, even individuals, they can all use these tools now instead of being shut out.
Which makes AI cheaper, and that just fuels the whole cycle, right?
Exactly. It's a feedback loop. But of course, nothing's perfect. There are concerns about open source too, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Some of the stuff I read, people are worried about, bad actors getting their hands on these powerful AI models.
It's a legitimate concern. Safety, security, the potential for misuse. We got to think about all that. It's like giving everyone a really powerful tool. Some people are going to use it to build amazing things, but, well,
You can't control human nature, unfortunately. It's kind of mind-blowing when you think about it. Here we are on the edge of this whole AI revolution, and we're still figuring out the rules of the game as we go.
It's true. But isn't that exciting in a way? We're shaping the future. Right here, right now.
Yeah, it's definitely not boring. So we've got this distillation thing, open source, the race to AGI. Anything else that really jumped out at you from all the research our listeners sent in?
It's interesting. A lot of businesses are starting to push back against the big companies that charge a lot for their AI platforms. They're realizing, hey, maybe I can get the same results with open source or even build my own stuff using distillation.
Makes sense. Why pay a fortune when you don't have to, right? But if companies are thinking that way, wouldn't that apply to AGI too? Could we see AGI coming from some small, scrappy team that figures out how to use these new tools better than anyone else?
That's a question that's got a lot of experts debating. The playing field is changing. That much is clear. What used to be only possible for, like, the Googles of the world, it's becoming more open.
So maybe the future of AI isn't as predictable as we thought.
I think that's a safe bet. The big challenge now, it's finding that balance, right? Pushing the boundaries, but doing it responsibly.
Yeah, fostering innovation, but not letting things get out of control. Tough needle to thread.
It's a question that deserves its own deep dive, to be honest. It's something that everyone's grappling with, from researchers to policymakers.
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, any final thoughts for our listener as they're thinking about all this, distillation, the future of AI, all that?
I think the main takeaway is AI isn't some far off thing anymore. It's here, it's impacting our lives, and it's moving fast. Distillation, open source, it's all part of this bigger story. The important thing is approach it with your eyes wide open, right? Understand what it is, what it can do, but also what the risks are, and be part of the conversation. Because the future of AI, it's not being decided by some algorithm, it's being shaped by all of us.
Thinking back to where we started, it's kind of crazy how much DeepSeek shook things up.
Yeah.
They really got everyone talking about open source and whether the little guy can actually compete in AI.
Totally. It was like, hold on, maybe the tech giants don't have all the power anymore. It's like a David and Goliath story. But in the world of, algorithms and data.
Yeah, they were this tiny startup, and bam, suddenly they're making waves that even OpenAI had to notice.
And what's amazing is they didn't just use what was already out there. They innovated, made things better. It shows that ingenuity, that human spark, it still matters. You can't just throw money and computing power at a problem and expect the best results.
So if we tie that back to everything else we've discussed, it really does feel like AI development is becoming more democratic. Is that the right word?
I think so. All these things we've talked about, open source models, distillation techniques, even just the fact that computing power is getting cheaper, it's like leveling the playing field. It's not just the elite few who get to play in the AI sandbox anymore.
Just like suddenly everyone's invited to the party.
Exactly. And that's both, exciting and kind of scary, right? We've touched on the risks, but think of the potential. So many bright minds out there who could never get involved before. Now they can contribute, come up with new ideas, solve problems we haven't even thought of yet.
That's a pretty optimistic view, but I like it. It's not all doom and gloom.
Definitely not. It's easy to get caught up in the killer robots and the singularity and all that. But there's so much good that can come from AI. It's a tool. And like any tool, it depends on who's using it and what they're using it for.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to come back to something you said earlier. We were talking about distillation, how it's about taking a complex thing and making it, well, less complex.
Right, like boiling it down to its essence, the key ingredients.
And you know what? I think that's a good way to look at any kind of learning, especially in a field like AI. It's so easy to get overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information out there. But the key is to, distill it. Find those core principles, the things that really matter.
That's so true. It's not about memorizing every single detail. It's about understanding the underlying concepts, the big picture.
And that's what we've tried to do today, right? Take this complex topic, AI distillation, and kind of boil it down to its essence. But the journey doesn't end here. It's up to our listener to take these ideas, run with them, do their own exploring.
Absolutely. We're just giving them a starting point, a framework. But the real learning, the real discovery, it happens when you go beyond that. Start asking your own questions, connecting the dots in your own way.
And that's the beauty of these deep dives, isn't it? We're all learning together, figuring things out as we go.
It's a conversation, not a lecture. And it's a conversation that, honestly, I think everyone should be a part of. Because AI, it's not just some niche tech thing anymore. It's affecting all of us.
Couldn't agree more. So to everyone listening, thank you for coming along on this deep dive with us. We hope it's given you some food for thought, some new perspectives, maybe even spark some inspiration. Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those questions coming. The world of AI is changing every day, and it's up to all of us to shape its future.